So in this edition of Book of the Beast, we're going to be starting our series on the Dataslates. And the first one is the Warboss. We'll probably just go in order here in the book. So this is the layout for, if you've not seen the Orc Codex, this is the layout for each individual unit. It's called a data slate, basically. And it's laid out in, we've got a giant picture of the unit, some fluff here on the side, and then all the information you need to build that unit down here below it. Of course, the pictures will vary with the amount of space it needs throughout the book, but overall, this is the only place it's laid out like this. There's no like summary in the back or anything as to the upgrades. There's a summary of the stats, but that's it. Generally, I'm not a huge fan of this. It's not actually a bad layout. I just think it's having the units and the upgrades in the back is a little more useful. But it is nice to have all the options and the special rules together, because if you notice on the other codexes, like for example, we'll take Longstrike as an example. He's given as an upgrade in the Hammerhead entry, and then you have to go to this part of the book to get the special rules. Here it's all laid out, all the rules, all the upgrades. So the only thing that's you need to add into each individual unit is war gear. Here are you got the war gear options page, and you got some more war gear information in the back. So mostly what you need is on each individual data slate. So overall the layout's okay. I thought it was kind of annoying at first, but I've built a couple lists with it. Done, looking back and forth and so far. So far, it's actually a little bit easier, I think, to build a list with this layout than the previous layouts. Especially since I think the Tau book layout was so good. This is actually, I think, a little easier to build a working list from. So let's talk about the Warboss. If you played the previous codex, the Warboss really has not changed in any significant way. His stats are all identical. He's still an independent character, of course. He's got the same war gear, slugga, chopper, stick bombs. The Warbosses always came with stick bombs. He's got all your normal orc rules: Eerie Go, Furious Charge, and Mob Rule. The biggest change is that you have to have a Warboss to call a Wa, whereas before the Wa was an army-wide rule. So only if you have a Warboss, and only if the Warboss is your warlord, can you call the Wa. So even if you have more than one Warboss, only the Warboss who's your warlord can use his Wa rule. That's I thought it could be that any Warboss could call a Wa, but no, it says very specifically under the Wa rule that if he is your warlord, may call a Wa. So multiple Warbosses doesn't give you multiple Was, but if you have a Warboss and roll a 1 on the Orc Warlord trait, then you can have a Wa in return. He's alive. And because that's the other thing, is he has to be alive to call the Wa, whereas before I said it was an army-wide rule, so the HQs didn't have to be alive, your warlord didn't have to be alive, nothing like that. So keeping your Warboss alive for the first couple turns until you're ready to do the Wa is very, very important. So hiding him in a big unit of boys or whatever is very important until you can call the Wa that you want, if you're going to call a Wa. And the Wa is actually way better than it was before. Before it just gave you fleet, but now you can run and then charge. So that's a potential of 3d6 total charge range. So up to a 24-inch threat range from infantry. So, because you got the run move, and there's another warlord trait that allows you to re-roll run and charge distances. And every unit has Eerie Go, which allows you to roll 1 of the charge dice. So that's 6-inch move, 6d6 run, and then a 2d6 charge with 1 re-roll of those 2 dice. Then in turn you call your Wa. It's very easy to get across the table with infantry with the special rule. So if you're planning on building any sort of an assault force, a Warboss warlord is pretty much mandatory. And, you know, he's still really good in close combat. He's skilled weapon skill 5, toughness 5 with 3 wounds, and a base initiative of 4. So, he's still really good in close combat, still above average, well above average, especially for a 60-point HQ. You're not going to get those kind of stats anywhere else. So let's talk about war gear and upgrades. The most obvious and most frequent upgrade, of course, you're going to have is a Power Fist, Power Claw. You probably never see a Warboss without it, but it's not the only option. Let's go over to the upgrade page here. So you can take pretty much anything that isn't a mech weapon here, or a vehicle upgrade, of course. You can take one. The sad thing is you can only take one gift of Gork and Mork per model, so that's kind of a sucky limitation. But generally, you're going to see a Power Fist. The only two melee options is a Big Chopper or Power Fist. Big Choppers are AP 5 now, so they're okay against lighter troops. But of course, Power Claw, especially since the Warboss is Strength 5 base, it'll be Strength 10. So that's kind of a no-brainer. Other ranged weapons, you know, you might want to give them a Combi Scorcher, which actually went up in price to 10 points from 5. So Combi Scorcher is still just good, even at 10 points. It's still a very, very good option for a ranged weapon, especially if you're running a Power Claw. Let's see, where is it? Ammo screens. The Attack Squig, which used to be a no-brainer, really isn't anymore. For 50, it's the same price, and it grants 1 reroll to hit or to wound. So basically, for 15 points, you Mastercraft your Power Fist. I don't think that's worth it anymore. If it was 5 points or 10 points, maybe. At 15 points, I don't think the Attack Squig is going to be on any more Warbosses, especially if you take the Lucky Stick. This is what I consider a no-brainer must-take on every Warboss, or pretty much somewhere in your army, is the Lucky Stick. The Lucky Stick has 2 basic functions. First one is it gives every model in the character's unit plus 1 weapon skill. So your Warbosses become weapon skill 6, and all your Orcs become weapon skill 5. Unfortunately, it does not stack with the War Banner, but it doesn't really need to. The Lucky Stick, I think, and of course, and then it grants 3 rerolls of hits, wounds, or saves per turn. But if you fail those rerolls, then you remove the model. That's okay. You only use it twice. Whatever. The Lucky Stick is incredible. So, it's your basic loadout for a Warboss. Oh, and then of course, Cyborg, of course, doesn't give you the 5-up invul anymore. Gives you a 6-up Feel No Pain. It's 5 points. If you got the 5 points, it may be worth taking. Your Warboss is probably going to have a Pain Boy in his unit anyway. But it's still, might as well, it's better than nothing, let's say. And you can also take Heavy Armor for 4 points. So your basic loadout for a Warboss is going to be the Warboss, Power Fist, Heavy Armor, and the Lucky Stick. And a Boss Pole. Always give as many Boss Poles out there as you can, so if you lose characters, you can keep re-rolling. That's 30, 55. So that's 60 plus 50, 110, 115. So like 120 points is going to be your basic Warboss loadout. Now you can put him in Mega Armor or give him a War Bite. Just like before, all those prices cost just exactly the same. So a basic Mega Armored Warboss is going to be 100 points. A basic Biker Boss is going to be 85, and you're going to add, so basically you're going to add, 20 points on top of, because Warbot is 25, and you're going to take Heavy Armor anyway, so it's like 21 points more. So you're still getting about 140 points. You can still give your Mega Armor Warboss Combi Scorcher. You can still take the Cyborg body and the Boss Pole if you want to. So, pretty much if you played the previous codec, Warbosses are exactly the same. They're still great close combat characters. They're still really good. As far as taking more than one, you might want to consider that. I was thinking at one time, taking a second Warboss with the Kill Choppa gift of Mork and Gork. It'd just be 80 points for just that. And the idea is that he could, attack at initiative with on the charge. It would be a strength 8 rending weapon with 4 or 5 base attacks. And you might want to give him a squig. That's kind of spendy. So you got 4 attacks on the charge. You got 5 attacks on the charge with strength 8, AP 5 rending, and potentially for instant death. That's not bad for just 80 points, but it's not going to be your main character. You got to have something else to absorb challenges. But having a second Warboss for that with those kind of stats and that kind of weapon may not be a bad idea. So, unfortunately, though, as I said, you don't get to use a second Wah. You only get the one Wah. So, that's about it for Warbosses. I said, if you played the previous codex, they're exactly the same. The Wah is way better. Other than that, you're probably going to see a lot of Warbosses on the table just because of the Wah. Probably even more so than you saw before, because they were kind of starting to get out of favor for KFF mechs in the previous book, at least from my experience. But Warbosses are definitely got an upgrade. Became, I don't know something about an upgrade from the Wah, but definitely became more important than they once were. So that's it for this episode of Book of the Beast, and we'll talk to you next time.